Well, yep, they couged it. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where, yeah, I know that was a bit of a cheap shot. Maybe the Cougars catching a loose stray there, but it wasn't totally out of the blue. It was Cougar Jersey night at the arena, which seemed like an interesting choice for a game against a team that wears a very similar jersey. I mean, a brighter color of red, but and there were already a fair few Red Wings jerseys in the first place. But yeah, for the Kraken, they do find a way to lose this one late, falling 4-3 in regulation. Not even getting the loser point, which they were just a couple minutes away from at least getting the overtime point, which right now they could desperately need as they are starting to fall down the standings. I mean, they've already fallen a few places down the standings, but now they're also losing the games they have in hand, which more solidifies that spot that they currently have down the standings. Regardless, it does seem like the wheels are starting to come off for this team, as this was a game against a Red Wings team that has started to kind of fall apart a bit themselves, that the Kraken needed to come away with at least something from it, and they blow a lead and lose it completely late to make sure that doesn't happen. But with that, I suppose we might as well actually get into the game itself, with the lines switching around a little bit. Other than Beniers' line, that actually stays the same, with Mason Marchment coming back into the lineup, Yanni Newman back out. Beniers stays with Eberle, obviously, has been there for pretty much the whole season, but McCann stays up on that line instead of putting Marchment back after the one game he missed, which we'll say that he was actually injured after the 4-day break and just wasn't missing that game in Edmonton because he didn't want to get beat up and run after again after what happened in the game in Seattle, but that was it. It smelled a little fishy that he missed that game in Edmonton. I'll just put it that way, and I'm sure Oilers fans feel a little bit stronger about that opinion, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, or at least some of us might. The more generous of us will give him the benefit of the doubt that he wasn't just trying to dodge the Oilers' ire after the hit on Nurse in Seattle for a second game in a row. Either way, Marchment back into the lineup. He ends up slotting in with Stevenson and Tolvanen in this game. Meanwhile, Wright and Catton are back together, which I really like seeing Wright and Catton together. Catton still centering that line instead of Wright, which I guess to me it doesn't really matter too much which one of them plays what role. Hopefully being on the wing helps Wright think a little bit less. He does have a problem, it seems, of overthinking things, and maybe having a little bit less responsibilities will help him not do that as much. Catton has been playing pretty well, so I don't mind him at center, but I do like the two of them together. I think they work well, and hopefully they also had Kakko on their wing as well, the other wing. So, but anyway, like I said, I do really like that line. I especially like those two together. I hope we keep seeing it, and at the very least, the Kraken did score another 3 goals in this game, which for them is actually a fair number. So I don't think the offensive side of things is quite as much what we have to worry about, so much as getting into the game. It's a usual suspect that puts the Kraken down 1 early, which ultimately would be the decider. It's the Kraken penalty kill. Unfortunately, this is a penalty kill the Kraken go to somewhat early in the first period because of Berkeley Catton, who takes a pretty bad hooking call. He got away with a little bit of a hook trying to defend a rush, but did a pretty good job not drawing the call as he defends a rush in from behind. But then after the play it's no longer dangerous. He just goes in one more time with the stick, and that does draw the call. He goes to the box, and the Kraken penalty kill, as predictable as ever, does actually kill off the first minute, even minute and 30 seconds, but with about 30 seconds left in it, after they'd already given up a couple of pretty good opportunities. So it's not like they had really done a fantastic job of killing it off for the first minute and a half of it. Right off the jump, the Red Wings, who won the faceoff, put a shot off the far post that Decord really wouldn't have had a chance for. If it was a couple inches farther in, it would have been a goal right out of the gate. But they're able to survive thanks to a good save from Decord, who didn't have his best night, but a couple of good saves from Decord get them to that point where 30 seconds left in, they're still leaving passing lanes wide open, and it's a pass straight across from the low face-off dot on one side to the kind of outside of the face-off circle on the far side, and a one-time shot. Decord has no chance for it, and it's 1-0 Detroit with the power play goal, which is obviously already not ideal just from the perspective of this game, but now in the last 3 games, this now league worst Kraken penalty kill has given up 7 power play goals in 8 power play opportunities, and the only one that they killed off was just because they nearly killed off overlapping penalties, and then there just wasn't enough time really for them to get back in and score the second one in Edmonton there at the end of the game. Not that they needed to, because at that point they were already up 8-3. But so yeah, at this point, the Kraken penalty kill is pretty much an automatic goal. It might literally be better for the Kraken if they just forfeited the goal when they go to the penalty. That way you at least get a minute or two extra on the clock to try to respond to the goal that you're going to give up anyway. I mean, what would be nice is if they actually tried to change some things around. They get out of the system of the little wedge, the three down at the bottom in front of the net, and then the one guy just roving around up top. All that seems to do is open up all the passing lanes in the world. And even with the one roving up top, he still always ends up getting clumped into the ice. They either clump up and let everything from the outside, or they get too spread out and don't get in the passing lanes, and you get a clean pass across and an easy goal, which they got that clean pass across a couple of times. They got it right at the start, which led to the shot off the post, and then they got it one more time, which Coug'ed made a decent read on and made that save, even on a night where he wasn't really seeing the puck all that well. He had a number of pretty good saves. The Kraken defense was still not necessarily its best, but he just didn't seem like he was really seeing the puck that well and tracking things consistently the way that we normally see him do. So with that, I guess maybe more of a discussion for the end after we get through the recap, but I'm kind of hoping they go with Grubauer in the next one. We can talk about that towards the end. Regardless, the Kraken down 1-0 after giving up yet another power play goal to an opponent. And then on the other side of the special teams issues for the Kraken right now, the power play they get a chance on just a couple minutes later, but they aren't able to convert with actually a fair number of chances. They were able to move the puck around, generate some open looks, but then just continue to do one pass too many, trying to just pass it around Gibson rather than shoot the puck. Well, they were getting Gibson to move side to side, but there was a couple of times where they'd get him to move around in net, kind of scrambling a bit, and then just not shoot the puck at the net, where, I mean, yeah, maybe it still hits Gibson, but you've got him moving. You've got what you want from him already, and yeah, it's not a completely wide open net off of one pass, but a second pass gives you the one extra opportunity for a team that actually is pretty decent at getting in those passing lanes on the kill to break it up, and that's pretty much what would happen. They eventually get one, maybe two shots on goal, but they're more the shots from the outside that Gibson's able to read pretty well, and not terribly hard ones for him to make. So the Kraken power play once again comes up empty. They're now 1 for their last something in the teens. And yeah, the one did come very technically at the end of a power play in the previous game, where even at some points it was officially scored as not a power play goal. They're never going to put up the counting down the last second of the power play as the puck goes in, like they do with, obviously the end of a period or the end of a game. They'll have that overhead shot of the puck crossing the line with the clock up there. They're not going to bother doing that for a power play just to make sure that they get the scoring absolutely perfectly right. It did say 0-0 on the clock when they got that power play goal against Edmonton in the previous game, but they end up giving them the power play goal. I suppose in the spirit of it, the guy still wasn't out of the box and back in the play, so you can give it to him. But all that to say, the power play, while it isn't as bad as the penalty kill, it's not a lot better, especially because they did actually give up a goal to the Oilers on the power play. So yeah, it's not going well. Not going well in special teams whatsoever. I haven't actually gone through it for this one, but I'll probably put together the stat, and if it continues to be a problem or a story in the next game, I'll have something ready for how many games the Kraken this season have already lost just because of special teams. And I'll also do how many they won, to be fair, but I don't know that that's any. So anyway, the special teams are a total liability for the Kraken at this point. They're very well probably the reason the Kraken are not still in a playoff spot right now. At the very least, though, even with all that being said, and the special teams are definitely a huge problem that needs to be solved if this team wants any chance of trying to get back into the playoff picture. Fortunately for the Kraken in this game, they did not spend very much time in special teams. And at 5-on-5, at least in the first period, they were playing pretty well. They were, I would say, pretty handily outplaying the Red Wings in the first period at 5-on-5, and eventually that does lead to them tying the game late in the first. It's a breakout set up really well by Matty Beniers, who is kind of working the puck out across the blue line, but then realizes he's going to get pinched along the boards. So at the last second, he just kind of curls away from it, creating a little bit of space for himself, skates up him into the neutral zone before seeing Eberle on the rush on the far side, gets him in stride. Eberle skates in with it, then drops it as a man gets up onto him, drops it for Montour, who gets up, looks up at the net, fires off a shot, and buries it to the far side of the net using Eberle and Chabot, who I think was covering Eberle as they kind of move out of the way, uses the two of them as a moving screen so Gibson doesn't see the shot clean as it's coming off. That allows it to get past, and the Kraken tie things going into the first intermission. I mean, there's still a couple more minutes afterwards, but we would get to the first intermission tied at 1. I suppose with that said, I maybe shouldn't fully skip over what happened in the last couple minutes of the first period where the Kraken really, I mean, I said they were out playing the Red Wings through the 5-on-5 portions of the first period, but they dominated the last couple minutes of the first period. They almost spent the last 2 minutes of it in the offensive end entirely. 2 back-to-back shifts of the Kraken just keeping the puck in. A couple of very nice keeps at the blue line by Brandon Montour, one of which kind of just hits him, but he's still in the right place at the right time. A clearing attempt there that got him in the chest on the blue line. And then another one where he dives on the ice and swings his stick to keep it in the zone. 2 great keeps by him, and eventually it doesn't lead to a goal, but it really does seem to build some momentum for the Kraken, some confidence, and they start with that to start out the second period. That line, that defensive pairing back immediately into the offensive end, getting the Kraken some chances. But then a few minutes in, 5 minutes into the first period, after it's been all Kraken to start the second, against the flow of play, the Red Wings get it down to the Kraken net, and then it's hack and whack time, actually at the side of the net from kind of behind it. Decord does the thing where he kind of just pinches both legs on either side of the post, and, well, the refs don't blow it dead. It ends up under his pads, so it's probably still a little bit loose, but it's under Decord's pads, and then it's Copp who's just poking at it, pushing Decord's pads around. Eventually the puck squirts out of all of that and slowly goes across the goal line, just across the goal line before Lindgren can get his hand on it and shuffle it out. They let play continue for a while. They waved it off as it having not crossed the line. They never blow the play dead, so they wave it off saying the puck didn't cross. Eventually there's a stoppage, and upon review they find out that correctly, yes, the puck did cross the line. I still think the Kraken had an argument to try and challenge this for no goal. You could challenge for Copp having pushed Decord's pad, and that's the reason that the puck went in. They already waved off a Detroit goal in the first period because of a puck being pushed in with Decord's pad, so it's not totally out of the realm of possibility that this one, which did look like that was a big part of the reason of the puck getting in, was Copp just pushing Decord's pad with his stick. So they would have needed clear and obvious evidence that the puck did go in as a result of Decord's pad getting pushed by an opponent. And while I think that was there, I don't know that it was much better than a 50-50, maybe a 60-40 that they would have gotten it overturned. And while that might be a chance that you're willing to take if you have a league average penalty kill, when you have a penalty kill that is right now an automatic goal, this is the difference of being down 1 to potentially being down 2 if you're wrong. And you can maybe come back from being down 1, being down 2. They've done it before this season, but I think the Kraken are probably better served not taking the chance and just, recognizing that their penalty kill is a non-option. And unless it is clear to you that you're going to get the call right, you just can't challenge. Which is another reason that the penalty kill is costing the Kraken some potential points on the scoreboard, is that it's making them, I think at least, it's making them more hesitant to challenge, potential plays that they could get some goals back. Thankfully, though, the Kraken still do get this one back with a goal of their own back the other way. A quick response goal for the Kraken, not immediately after, but not much more than a minute after they fall down a goal. They tie the game right back up. It's another goal from the Kraken blue line. Kraken defensemen continuing to contribute pretty well for the team. It's Adam Larsson with a shot from way up by the blue line that finds its way through. And at first look, it looked like a pretty soft goal for Gibson to let in. But once again, it's traffic in front of him that just causes him to kind of have to scoot out to one side to look around and try and see the shot. And as he commits to one side to kind of look around that moving screen of Ryan Winterton, who did a good job of getting out in front of the net here, and another Detroit defenseman, Makes that decision to look around one side. Larson puts the shot back to the other, and the Kraken tie things at 2. And then just a few minutes later, the Kraken continued to dominate, maybe is a bit strong, but certainly control the 5-on-5 game, with a couple of rush chances back the other way in a response that Coug'ed has to make some saves on. So from a defensive perspective, still maybe not their best game, or ideally what you'd be giving up as far as the chances back the other way. They're still getting many more chances down at Detroit's end, and it does lead to a 3-2 lead. It's more... the goal doesn't come from the blue line, but the shot does. It's Adam Larsson once again with a one-timer from basically down Main Street, right up at the blue line, down the middle. It ends up going off of Chandler Stevenson's stick on the way, actually breaking Stevenson's stick on the way. A pretty hard one-time shot from Larsson that deflects off Stevenson's outstretched stick and then off the side of Gibson's mask and into the top corner of the net to give the Kraken the 3-2 lead. Larsson picking up 2 points in a pretty short span of time here. It does feel like he's kind of started to contribute a little bit more offensively this season. I mean, the points aren't necessarily reflecting that, but it feels like he's been more involved offensively than we're used to seeing him. But I don't know, maybe that's just how little offense we've seen this season, that it really stands out when someone starts shooting the puck like Larsson was in this game. Either way, for the Kraken, they'll happily take the lead. By the way, on the previous Larsson goal, Dunn does pick up his 300th NHL point with the assist. So congratulations to Dunn, who continues to produce for the Kraken offensively. Not as much as his partner in this particular game, but yeah, for Dunn, still definitely helping the Kraken out on the offensive end, where they could use all the help they can get this season. But the Kraken, the 3-2 lead, they would carry that one through a power play they would get not long after with a chance to extend the lead, but of course they aren't able to. It looks like we're going to get to the second intermission with the Kraken holding that 3-2 lead, but then one last rush chance with 30 seconds left in the period. The Red Wings, who have been getting some chances, some odd man looks back the other way here and there. One last one is one too many. It's Riker Evans who pinches a little bit too far down the boards in the offensive end. The puck gets poked past him. It looked like he kind of, at the last second, recognized he might not get to it first and just kind of gave up on going for it, which then just makes it easier to poke past him. Either way, and then Beniers is coming to get the puck, but he sees Evans pinch in a little bit too late, so both of them are kind of too low behind the play. It's definitely more on Evans, I would say, than Beniers, but it's both of them kind of miscommunicating, both going for the puck. It gets past them. It leads to a 2-on-1 chance with Larsson, the lone man, back. Beniers trying and nearly does get back, but he isn't able to. Ultimately, though, the pass isn't ever made. The shot is on net and into it over the pad of Coug'ed, right into the far side. It's an absolutely perfectly placed shot from Van Riemsdyk, but it's in the net either way, and the game is tied 3-3 going into the third. And then in the third period, the Kraken don't get off to a good start. They aren't able to keep the momentum that they really had throughout pretty much the entirety of the second and at least the back half of the first. At 5-on-5, there's no special teams in the third period, but it is Detroit who nearly scores right away. Coug'ed makes an incredible save. It looked like an absolute career highlight reel type of save as he goes from one side to the other, reads a pass perfectly, and lunges to the far side with his glove up. The shot ends up being, I think, a little bit off the mark. It kind of hits him in the armpit, but either way, he makes the save, and it does look spectacular. But yeah, either way, it's still a very good save, and it had the chance of being a spectacular save. And still, even while I will stand by what I said earlier, that I really don't think this was Coug'ed's night. He didn't look especially sharp or like he was seeing the puck particularly well. He definitely didn't seem that confident, or as confident as we're used to seeing him in the crease. But even on not his best night, he's still making a save or two that are very, very nice saves. This is definitely one of it. It keeps the Kraken in the game and into a third period where it does pretty much even out, but it's a pretty low event third period through the vast majority of it, really until we get to the last 3 minutes or so, 4 minutes maybe of the period. Not much of anything happens after this first good chance very early on in the third from the Red Wings. The Kraken, though, would start to really lay on some pressure and try to get this game won in regulation for themselves in the final couple of minutes. But in the end, with 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock, or I suppose a little bit over 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock, it's once again Kraken defensemen trying their best to get involved. It's Vince Dunn diving down into the play with the puck, shoots one from a tight angle, but there's a chance. You know, we've talked about it. Put pucks on net, especially if you can get closer to the net. Every puck shot at the net has a chance of going in. Maybe it goes off of a leg of a defender or hits the goaltender weird and bounces in. We saw the Kraken taking actually a fair number of shots from tight angles, just looking for a fortunate bounce. If you do enough of it, you're eventually going to get a few. We've seen, I mean, Montour had one a few games ago, so it's definitely possible. But this one, Dunn takes from a tight angle down near the net. It bounces off the pad of Gibson and turns back down the other way. It's another rush chance, and unfortunately, it's another goal for the Red Wings as Patrick Kane skates in with a bit of empty ice. Eventually does get, I don't know who it was that comes right up into his face to challenge the shot, but you can't give, even if he is getting towards the end of his career and he's not the same Patrick Kane that he was when he was in Chicago and winning Stanley Cups. He still is a very dangerous player when given rush opportunities, and he proves it with a perfectly placed shot to the far side top corner over the glove of Coug'ed, giving Detroit the 4-3 lead, with 2:29 left. The Kraken don't even get Coug'ed pulled until about a minute left. They do get a couple of pretty good chances at 6-on-5, but aren't able to tie it late and get a miracle to happen to force an overtime and get at least the 1 point in the standings. So thanks to a couple of bad pinches by defensemen late in the game when you have a lead. I mean, late in the second period and then late in the third when you have that lead. And then, I mean, I guess the last one wasn't really a pinch. It was done actually trying to generate some offense, but that does kind of feel like the point in time where you like the offensive mindset, but you got to recognize that while it would be nice to just win it in regulation and not take the chance in overtime, you need the points in the standings. So just, try and play a little bit safer of a game. That doesn't happen. I think the pinch by Evans is a little bit more the problem at the end of the second period. There's still 20 minutes left there, so obviously you're not playing a defense-first game necessarily at that point. But yeah, for the Kraken, they find a way to lose, which is not necessarily something they've really done a ton of this season. I feel like they've maybe been on the other end more often where they've won games that they probably shouldn't have, or especially gotten at least an overtime point in games where they probably shouldn't have. This is a game where they really should have won the game and they end up losing it in regulation. So definitely a frustrating, disappointing, bitter end to this one. It doesn't help at all that it does come now at the end of what it was already a bit of a losing streak and just extends that. They've now lost 3 straight in regulation for the first time this season. And while they were getting some help from the teams around them in the division losing games at the same time, the Ducks won the previous day, and then both Edmonton and LA absolutely stomped their opponents. So the Kraken are starting to fall down the standings here a little bit, and it's going to be hard for them to play catch up with the schedule they have the rest of the way. And yes, again, one more time, I did bring it up at the beginning, but since we've gone through all the other stuff, although it was the first goal of the game, losing by 1 goal does mean that power play goal that they gave up and then not scoring on either power play opportunity, I would say does make special teams the difference in this game. When I put together how many points the Kraken have lost because of special teams, I think I would still count this as just losing 1 point or maybe like 1.5. They've been about 500 in overtime and shootout. I mean, not the shootout, but overtime and shootout together, they've been about 500. So I'd give them any games that would go to overtime. If it wasn't for it, I'd give them like 1.5. So I'd say they lose about 1.5 for this one because of special teams. And it's a problem that's going to cost them a chance to the playoffs at the rate we're going right now. Other than that, again, Coug'ed didn't, like I said, look especially sharp. Still had some very good saves, so still was giving the Kraken a chance. Definitely gave them a chance to win this game, but it didn't really look like himself for the second, maybe even third game in a row. He's kind of going through a bit of a rough patch right now, which then, at least to me anyway, if Coug'ed really is not at his best right now, which it doesn't seem like he is, this would be a perfect time for this next game against the Wild for the Kraken to give him another little bit of a breather and put Grubauer in. I know the Kraken just had the 4-day-long break, but it would already be nice if they could, it would be nice if they still had Murray so they could figure out who's playing better and they could give Coug'ed a bit of a break with any number of options, or I guess 2 different options. But on that note, I understand where you need to get the points in the standings. You need to start getting things going in the right direction. But Coug'ed isn't looking particularly confident. And while, if it's last season and your backup is giving you 870 goaltending, you just don't really feel like that is an option. You just kind of have to keep running Coug'ed out there until either he figures it out or you're far enough out of the standings where it doesn't matter, though even then they kept running Coug'ed out there. So to me, maybe it's different if Coug'ed or if Grubauer is just a complete non-option like he was last season. Maybe then you just keep going with Coug'ed. Or if Coug'ed is absolutely on it, playing like the Coug'ed we've seen for most of the last 2 seasons, giving you 920, 930 goaltending, then you're probably desperate enough for points where you kind of have to keep riding him, even with Grubauer playing well. But now with Coug'ed not looking especially sharp, and Grubauer has actually been playing pretty well over his last few starts, I think you got to give Coug'ed at least every third game off, if not even closer to every other, until he starts to, get back to the Coug'ed that we're used to. And yeah, it's not like Grubauer isn't giving you chances. He has been playing pretty well. And, with the way the Kraken played defensively in this game, especially with, again, giving up a lot of rush chances, I'm not necessarily saying that Grubauer would have been any better in this game. In fact, he might have let in an extra goal in this one in particular. But yeah, you gotta pick some spots and find ways to get Coug'ed some rest, and I think this next game would be a good one to do that against the Wild. So we'll see what they do there. Offensively, it does seem like they're starting to get that figured out a little bit. I think they did generate a lot of offense. It looked really good in this game, getting a lot of pucks to the net. They didn't look... It looked like they were going to find ways to score. As we went into the third period, I felt pretty good about the Kraken chances to win, the way that they played the first 2. That third period was a pretty uncharacteristically... Well, it was described by Montour. I think he said it was a boring third period, which I couldn't really disagree with him there. So, yeah, an uncharacteristic third from the Kraken, then definitely an uncharacteristic late goal allowed, not just from Coug'ed's end, but also from just allowing that chance in the first place late in a game that you have tied. Like I said, the Kraken had been finding ways to get wins and points in games that they hadn't necessarily earned those wins or points the way that they had played the games. In this one, for I think really the first time this season, that flips the other way, where the Kraken, I think, were the better team for most of the game and found a way to lose. As far as Kraken 3 stars, though, as we start to close this one out, Patreon suggested no stars again, which I understand the frustration fresh after the game. I still do think we'll still find 3 stars. It still is frustrating as the losing streak goes on. If the losing streak gets too long, then we'll just do the no stars until they win thing. But for now, I think there was a few guys worthy of it. A couple mentioned, if we were going to do stars, were Maddie and Montour. I agree with both of those. I'm going to give Montour the first star. I think he was fantastic in this game. Maddie and Montour both very involved. Anytime the Kraken were really starting to get some momentum going offensively, Montour was pretty much always involved. Maddie was almost always involved. The only times it wasn't Maddie involved was pretty much the fourth line getting into the offensive end and getting things set up. Stevenson, actually, all 4 lines looked pretty good in this game. Stevenson's line surprisingly played really well. Catton and Wright both looked pretty good. Catton in particular, I think, had a really good game aside from the penalty he took early, which is an automatic goal for the opposing team, in this case, the Red Wings. So yeah, I'll give the first 2 stars to Montour and then Maddie. And the third star could go to me any number of 2 different ways, maybe 3 different ways, but I think Catton was the third one I'm kind of thinking about, but I think it's kind of down to 2 guys. It would be the obvious one in Larson, who has the 2-point night. Defensively, maybe not his best night, but really not terrible either. He's the defenseman back on the game tying goal, but he's trying to take away the pass on a 2-on-1. So I don't necessarily fault him too much there. He's doing what he's supposed to do. But in the end, I think actually I'm going to give it to the other option of the third star here, which to me is Ty Cartier. I think he had a fantastic game. He does end up with an assist in it, but it was a secondary assist. And even without that, I think he was still, points aside, maybe the second best skater for the Kraken in this game. Maybe third. Eberle had a pretty good night too. But Maddie, Eberle, and then Cartier. Cartier was really good for the Kraken in this game. Great on the forecheck, really helping to generate a lot of that offensive momentum that the Kraken got and keep it going at times. So yeah, Cartier and that fourth line got back to kind of the way that they were playing when the Kraken were picking up a lot of points in games that they didn't necessarily deserve to. It was largely them grinding out in that fourth line, starting to grind out some shifts and grind out offensive opportunities for often like they would get things going in the offensive end and then change so Maddie's line could come on and maybe make something happen. It was back to that. A very good showing from the fourth line for the first time, I feel like, since they lost Ben Myers from that line. I mean, they got Freddie Gaudreau back, so talent-wise, no offense to Ben Myers, it's definitely an upgrade there, but they had some good chemistry going there with Myers. And yeah, since Gaudreau came back and is now back on that line, I think this was their best game. So yeah, good work from that fourth line. Great work from Cartier. Those are going to be my three, but let me know what you think down in the comment section below, how you're feeling about this season right now. I mean, from a channel standpoint, I can tell that interest has started to wane a little bit with the lower view counts in the last couple weeks, and it's somewhat understandable the way the team's playing right now. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section below, and yeah, until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.